In a small town, men live in fear of an entity named Stree, who abducts men at night. The movie follows our main protagonist Vicky, who is not only an attractive man but a skilled tailor too. So much so, that even his own father views him as a god in disguise due to his ability to change clothing into the most exquisite dresses a man has ever seen. The town is preparing for a festival where the goddess of fertility is celebrated. Though there is happiness everywhere, a dark myth is widely spread among the citizens. It is said that during this festival, an entity called Stree roams the town at night and abducts men. To prevent its entry into their homes, they write, "Oh Stree, come tomorrow," outside their homes with special ink. Vicky, on the other hand, doesn't believe in such myths and considers it an old fable told to scare the men. He considers himself modern, and despite being told to write the warning outside his home, he refuses to do so. Vicky takes 5 minutes break from his work and is sitting outside alone when an unnamed woman approaches him from behind. She is the most beautiful woman that Vicky has ever seen, and is almost instantly smitten with her with only one glance. She tells Vicky that although she doesn't live there, she visits the town every year at the time of the festival. She hands Vicky a set of unstitched clothes and asks if he can make a dress in 2 days. At first, Vicky is frozen, still not able to break free from her charm, but when she begins to leave, thinking that he doesn't want to help her, Vicky stops her and promises to stitch the dress right on time. Vicky takes her measurements without even touching her or using a measuring tape, proving once again that he is an expert in his field. She informs him that she will be visiting the temple in the evening and wants Vicky to join her, but Vicky, whose brain is still frozen, takes a few good minutes before realizing what she means. Later, Vicky goes to meet his best friends, Biddu and Jana. He tells them about his encounter with this woman. Biddu finds it difficult to believe that any woman would even talk to Vicky for more than 2 minutes. Vicky is actually a ladies' man, in spite of Biddu's skepticism. The conversation shifts away from the enigmatic woman, and Biddu reveals that the guys have a party to attend later that night. After the evening prayers end, Vicky makes up an excuse to stay behind and requests that his friends leave without him. Biddu knows his friend better than anyone and catches him lying. He refuses to leave and is disappointed that he would ditch him to go and meet some girl. A very happy Jana drags Biddu away, as he is in a sour mood brought on by his own failure in his love life. Once they are gone, Vicky looks for her everywhere, but finds her nowhere. Giving up on his quest, he stands alone, lighting up his cigarette, when the woman again approaches him from behind, just like before. He almost faints, but catches himself once his eyes fall on the angelic face he was so desperate to meet. They both sit and talk, but when Vicky asks for her phone number, she sorely tells him that she doesn't possess a cell phone. Instead, she asks him to just remember her when he wants to see her, and she will appear right before his very eyes. She hands him a letter and strictly forbids him from opening it until the next morning. Though everything she says seems strange, Vicky doesn't think much of it because of his love for her. Today is the first night of the festival, the night when Stree supposedly comes. Biddu and Jana are walking alone when they meet Rudra on the empty road. Rudra is a self-proclaimed expert on Stree and cautions the boys to avoid her. He explains to them the 3 guidelines they must follow in order to avoid her. 1. Never go out by yourself. 2. If necessary, go out in groups. 3. She will call your name if you ever run into her, so if she does, just keep walking straight ahead. Now that Rudra has left, the boys are terrified of the long road that lies in front of them. Jana keeps walking, but Biddu stops to tie his shoelaces. Everything around him suddenly becomes darker, and the lights start to dim. They both flee for their lives when 2 eyes in the jungle suddenly shine back at them. They have successfully made it back to their friend's house in one piece. The party is in full swing. One of their friends has also invited his girlfriend so he can spend some time with her. Unbeknownst to them, something wicked, along with his girlfriend, has also entered the house. Jana notices a woman's silhouette behind a curtain as everyone is dancing. But before he can go any further, his friend stops him and asks if he has any protection in order to sleep with his girlfriend. Their friend gets it and returns to his room. He is busy trying to get the lights back on when they suddenly start to flicker, and there she is. Right behind him, Stree is standing, and in a second, she drags him away with her. Hearing his screams, everyone comes looking for him, but it's already too late. He is gone. Only his clothes remain. The next day, Vicky opens the letter that she gave him, and even lets his friends read it. The letter starts fairly normally, but then it gets really bizarre. In the letter, she asks Vicky to buy a lizard's tail, a white cat's fur, a flower of datra, and some ingredients that are used in black magic. Despite Vicky's love-induced blindness, Biddu is undoubtedly suspicious of this strange shopping list. Despite Biddu's disapproval, Vicky takes up the challenge and gathers each item individually. Vicky and the girl reunite later that night after the prayers. She always arrives after the prayers are over, and never even steps foot inside the temple. She declines his food offering when he presents it to her. He is about to ask her name, when she abruptly cuts him off, and instead inquires about the ingredients. Vicky hands her everything, but is still confused about why she would need them in the first place. She smiles knowingly, and promises to tell him only when they are away from this crowd. Using this as an excuse, she gets into a cab and takes him somewhere unknown. Biddu, meanwhile, can't help but worry about Vicky and calls Jana to meet up with him right away. He shares his concerns with Jana. He comes to the conclusion that she is Stree due to the fact that no one other than Vicky has seen her, and her first love letter to Vicky is nothing more than a formula for black magic. They try calling his phone, but there is no response. His friends don't give up though and start looking for him everywhere. The unnamed woman has taken Vicky to the middle of the jungle where they sit and talk. Vicky lies and tells her that he needs to take her measurements again. She smiles and agrees to let him do it, but once he is done, she closes his eyes and then disappears into the darkness, as Biddu and Jana are returning back home. The fuel in their motorcycle runs out, and they have no option but to walk back. When they do finally make it into the town, it is already too late, and there is nothing but silence surrounding them. Biddu and Jana get into an argument and part ways. Later, it becomes clear that this was a grave error, as Jana is making his way home. All of a sudden, the lights in the street go out, and he starts hearing a woman's voice calling out his name. Despite the woman's shadowy black figure following Jana, he doesn't stop. She repeatedly calls out his name, and eventually Jana gives in and makes the mistake of turning around. As he stares at her face, his red-tinged eyes gleaming, he realizes that this was his final error. The enchantment comes to an end when he notices her feet in the air. He attempts to flee but is eventually caught by Stree. Jana's family mourns for him when they discover that he is gone. Biddu confronts Vicky about his girlfriend. When asked if something weird happened last night, he hesitantly reveals that she did disappear suddenly. After hearing this, Biddu decides that enough is enough and tells Vicky that she is Stree. Vicky finally begins to have suspicions about her, after noticing all of her odd characteristics. If this is accurate, she is the one responsible for abducting his friend. Vicky has many questions, and he needs the answers. Fuming with anger, he grabs the clothing that the unnamed woman gave him, and in just 30 minutes, he has created a stunning dress. He goes to their designated place where they always meet and waits for her. There, he even starts hallucinating about Stree when the woman finds him cowering in fear. He hands her the dress, with which she instantly falls in love. Finally, Vicky decides to confront her, after much deliberation, and asks her directly if she is Stree. However, she doesn't respond and instead vanishes once more. Vicky and Biddu devise a plan to save Jana as they decide to seek information from Rudra. As they had anticipated, Rudra does possess some answers. He passionately tells them about a beautiful woman who lived in the town years ago. Every man wanted to be with her, but she found love with the one who cared more about her soul than her appearance. The town's men were unable to stand their love and attacked them. They both passed away, but the woman's spirit still haunts the town, looking for her long-lost lover. Vicky realizes the fort depicted in the partially torn book is the same fort where he went on a date with the unidentified woman. Vicky, Biddu and Rudra visit the old fort in the hopes of finding Jana. Rudra and Biddu spend a few minutes in the haunted fort before they are chased away by Stree. Only Vicky remains inside, as he is still determined to find his friend. Suddenly, Vicky's torch goes out and he senses the presence of Stree. She calls out his name, but Vicky refuses to turn. Instead, he keeps requesting Stree to let go of his friend. He only turns when he thinks that she is gone, but is horrified when he discovers that he is face to face with Stree. She gazes into his eyes and, strangely, finds love there. Before she can react, a dagger is hurled in their direction. Vicky is saved by the unnamed woman, who casts a spell to expel Stree. Biddu and Rudra, who are still outside contemplating if they should go and save Vicky, are surprised and terrified to see the woman, along with Vicky. She finally reveals that she visits town every year, just to stop Stree. Her sole focus for the past 3 years has been on catching Stree. As they are walking, they hear noises from behind, and when they turn around, they finally spot Jana standing there, totally naked. Although Jana has returned, he isn't like he used to be. He leaves his home at night and erases the ink from the walls of different houses, enabling Stree to kidnap a number of men in a single night. Having been possessed, Jana now attacks anyone who approaches him. They need more answers, but since the old book's pages have been torn, Vicky and his group decide to meet the book's author. At first, Mr. Shastri appears to have forgotten all about Stree, but then he starts talking. He is furious with the men for using her only for their own amusement and then discarding her afterward. He tells them about the prophecy that one day a savior will come and save the town. They don't have to look any further, as all the qualities described by Mr. Shastri can easily be found in Vicky. Vicky stops his friends from imagining things, as he reminds them that the last quality of the savior being a courtesan's son isn't true, to which suddenly the atmosphere becomes awkward. Finally, it is revealed that not only his friends, but the whole town know that his mother was a courtesan, except Vicky himself. The truth infuriates him and he leaves abruptly. He confronts his father in a drunken state, but later apologizes to him for his behavior. His father confirms the news, but it doesn't affect Vicky anymore. He appreciates his father's love and the sacrifices he made for him. Vicky needs to save his town, because no one there has ever made fun of him, and they have all accepted him despite his mother's true identity. They develop a strategy to eliminate Stree permanently together. Rudra suggests that since Stree is looking for someone to fulfill her dream of a wedding night, Vicky is the best option for that. They can lure Stree into a trap, using him as bait. They prepare Vicky's place to welcome Stree. This is where they plan to take her down. Finally, the day turns into night, and all the folks of the town lock their doors. Vicky is ready as he wears the groom's attire. Ned is terrified to meet her. The unnamed woman assures Vicky that she is here and will save him no matter what. Stree sees the invitation to enter that they had intentionally written for her. Jana senses her presence and begins to act violently. He breaks free and attacks the group, while Stree takes Vicky away back to her fort. He does manage to share his location with his friends, but right now he is all alone with Stree. Vicky tries everything to save himself, but eventually comes face to face with Stree. As he looks into her deep eyes, Vicky realizes that the only thing she ever wanted was love. The unnamed woman attacks Stree and reminds Vicky that he has to pierce her heart with a dagger and cut off her braid. Before, Vicky was ready to go with this plan, but since he has looked into her eyes, he is hesitant to do so. Seeing Vicky's dilemma, the unnamed woman then instructs him to only cut off her braid, as it wouldn't end her, just make her powerless. Suddenly, Stree wakes up and attacks the woman. She runs for her life, but Stree follows her everywhere. With nowhere to run, Stree is about to hurt the woman when Vicky comes up from behind and cuts off a strand of her hair. As soon as he does so, Stree disappears. She only wanted love and respect, something that the city never gave her. They are about to leave when all the men abducted by Stree come walking out of the fort. They proudly return back to the town and are even awarded for their valor. The unnamed woman is about to leave the city when Vicky comes to meet her for the last time. She is wearing the dress that he stitched for her. As she is about to get on the bus, she tells him again to just remember her and that she will come to him no matter what. She leaves, and Vicky groans in frustration when he realizes that he still doesn't know her name. On the bus, the unnamed woman merges Stree's hair with her own and disappears from the bus. This depicts that she has been a witch all along. 1 year later, Stree returns, but upon her arrival, she finds a statue of herself and a note written beside it that reads, "Oh Stree, protect us." She never enters the city again.